Well, tensions are escalating as the US pushes for a peace deal. Russia unleashes relentless aerial assaults in Ukraine. Russian army claims to have captured a village in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, close to a road linking key towns as Moscow slowly eats up territory. The Russian Ministry of Defense says that it has seized the village of Berezivka, which lies close to a road linking the important mining hub of Pokrovsk to another key town. Russia claims that its forces have taken control of six more settlements, in fact, in Ukraine's Donetsk region over the past week. Ukraine says that it has repelled multiple Russian attacks along the front lines. The escalation in the war comes a day after Ukraine alleged a Russian drone armed with a warhead hit the protective outer shell of Chernobyl nuclear plant. Well, the Kremlin has denied responsibility for the drone attack. The UN International Atomic Energy Agency, which said the strike did not breach the plant's inner containment shell, says the radiation levels at the shuttered plant in Kyiv region have not increased. Fighting around nuclear power plants has repeatedly raised fears of a nuclear catastrophe during 3 years of war.
The situation is under control. Today we have localized almost the entire situation, which could have led to disastrous consequences.
As the war rages on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin only after there is a quote-unquote common plan agreed upon with the US and Europe. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference, he urges Europe to rally in the face of the threat from Russia.
This is Russia's. Everything needed to protect lives in modern war should be produced in Europe fully. Europe has everything it takes. Europe just needs to come together and start acting in a way that no one can say no to Europe. Both it round or threat it like a pushover.
So that's how things stand as of now. Joining us live on the broadcast is Scott Lucas. He's going to elucidate this further. He's a professor of international politics at the Clinton Institute, University College Dublin. Thanks for your time, Scott, and for joining us on the show. Well, the US president had talked of a quote-unquote good possibility of ending the war after Putin and he spoke on the phone. Trump also says that it was not quote-unquote practical for Ukraine to join NATO, and it was again, quote-unquote, unlikely that Ukraine could return to its pre-invasion borders. Now, Ukrainian President Zelensky has said that Ukraine will not agree to any peace deal without its involvement. Zelensky has also urged Europe to, quote-unquote, act for your own sake, for the sake of your nations, your houses, your children. What, in your opinion, is Europe's plan here?
Well, I think it's important to cut through the reality of what is happening and the practical question of how you end Russia's 3-year invasion of Ukraine. And I think there are two issues. The first is, who is at the negotiating table? I think everyone agrees we want an end to the invasion. But what Donald Trump has done is effectively said, I'm going to directly deal with Vladimir Putin. We're going to decide what the terms of the agreement will be. And those, of course, would probably favor the Kremlin, including its continued occupation of about a quarter of Ukraine. What Europe and President Zelensky say is, no, you can't negotiate without us at the table. We are involved in this conflict. It's our security that is at stake. Then secondly, what are the terms of a possible agreement going to be? Now, I believe that European leaders and President Zelensky, privately, if not publicly, would accept a short-term Russian occupation of part of Ukraine. Think of the division of Germany during the Cold War. But Europe and Zelensky are not going to accept a legal recognition of Russia taking over part of eastern and southern Ukraine. And Russia and Zelensky are not going to accept Kyiv being left without security guarantees. Now, what should those guarantees be? Should they be NATO membership for Ukraine, or should they be something short of NATO membership, in which Kyiv continues to get weapons, in which there may be European troops involved in overseeing a ceasefire? Those are the key issues. The fear here is that Donald Trump is not interested really in those key issues. He just wants to look good making a deal with Vladimir Putin.
I want to build on to that NATO membership, and while you describe that's how things are as goes Europe, let me also ask you, what role will the US play here? What steps would you say that the US will take? Understandably, Zelensky will look for a guarantee that his country's security will be assured until peace takes hold. Now, with NATO membership taken off the table, how is that ensured by the US and other European nations?
Let's be very clear here that the Trump administration, or at least most people in the Trump administration, do not want to be part of a lasting deal for Ukraine. Their interests are far different here. For example, let's ask what Donald Trump's interests are. Donald Trump is interested in getting a photo opportunity with Vladimir Putin. He wants to say, I am the peacemaker, and Putin will play upon that. But Trump also wants to, he's acting like a businessman. He's saying, all right, if we give aid to Ukraine, I want to get rare earth minerals from Ukraine. We're talking about lithium, for example, or manganese. In other words, Trump wants to see this as something that benefits him and the US rather than Ukraine. Secondly, as J.D. Vance made clear yesterday, and as the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth made clear earlier this week, they don't see a U.S. alliance with Europe. They don't see that continuation of what we have had since the end of World War II. Hegseth effectively said, it's up to Europe. You do whatever you have to. Vance insulted European nations yesterday and actually supported far-right parties to try to take power in Europe. So the Trump administration here, Zelensky and Europe will continue to try to maneuver them to get some type of ongoing American assistance. But I think they recognize that this current U.S. administration has no starting point in European security. They're interested in other goals, primarily to benefit themselves and possibly to benefit certain other American interests.
Scott Lucas, thank you so much for your analysis and for taking the time out and joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.